Today we're going to talk through customizing PDF exports in CataList. So I'm Carol Gordon, I'm the project manager for CataList. This has been a big project we've been working on for the last few months with a lot of feedback from our user group and some of our users who have been beta testing. So the feature's available now in the system, and we're really excited to see what you guys do with this new feature. So let's walk through the process. So I guess the basic first question is, do I have to customize my PDF or export settings? And the answer to that is no. We still do have some default versions that anyone can come and call super easy. I'm looking at a catalog here, and you can just see where I've marked the PDF export. So when you click that, there's still the option for anyone that's coming to the site to pull a couple of default versions of your catalog without you having to do any customization at all. So we still have a single one per page version, a list version, and a tile version, so similar to our previous ones. They are updated based on some of the feedback we had about what people expected to be able to access in a general export. But we have added the ability, as you can see if I'm logged in here, to create new templates. And we're going to walk through all of that process today. So what parts of the PDF export can be customized? So we have lots of customization options. So we've added the ability to change the layout. So you can make some layout adjustments, how many rows or columns are on a page. You can change the content. And just about every single element can be turned on or off on these PDFs. So if you are doing stuff for export, you can turn off the Canadian contributor flag. We'll look at all of the pieces of that and how you can turn those on and off. You can customize the header and footer for the exports of your catalogs. And you can also now add some front matter and end pages to the beginning and ends of your catalogs. And that's actually more of a catalog function than a PDF strictly, but it definitely impacts and is visible in the PDF. So we're going to talk through that feature at the end as well. Some of these changes did necessitate a way to access all of our PDFs and our custom setups. So we did make a couple of changes to our My Page view. So here's our My Page view. And we did make some changes to kind of roll up some similar elements. We were getting a lot of things happening in the top of that page, and now we've added our PDF template options here as well. So just as a kind of overview, all of the alerts and updates are still available. It's a lot easier to just see when you actually have new notifications there, just with the exclamation badge. And you can clear them a lot more easily just by clicking on the X. So that is all rolled up under alerts and updates. Catalog creation tools, whether you're doing seasonal or custom catalogs, or if you just want to set a default view for your catalog, are all under the catalog creation tools. Load files, so if you're going to upload a notes file, is all under the file loading options. And then PDF templates is the new one. So right now, as you can see, we have no PDF custom templates in this account. So this is what we're actually going to work on now. So if I just click on that create new template button, it's going to pop up an option for you to create a template. So what do the templates do? They basically allow you to customize the layout and content and save that format so that you can pull any catalog or title in the format that you've set. So the first thing you need to do is give your template a name. So I'm going to build one. Obviously, notes is something that's a custom item. If you want to include your notes, that is, you can do that in any of the versions. But what I want to do to kind of demonstrate the single title option is add notes into my format. So I'm going to give this template a name that will help me identify what I customized in this for future use when I'm pulling PDFs. If I've got a lot of templates, I want to know what is special about this particular one. So I'm going to say that this is a single title with my notes. The second part of this is choosing a base template. So because we have a 1 per page, 5 in a list, 12 in a tile view, the way that the system will allow you to customize is to take any one of those as a base and then either add or remove or change column settings for your template. We'll look at each one individually, so don't panic, but we are going to start with single. So I'm making a single title with notes, and I'm choosing a base template single. So once I've done that, this single is the default, but you can choose any of them. Once I've done that, I'm just going to click Create. And this is sort of a zoomed out view of it. It's not normally this small, but I wanted to show the top and bottom. So what this is going to do is going to launch a preview page. So this is a preview of what the PDF layout will look like sort of on an average, with average content populated into it. If your descriptions are extra long, your description fields may be longer. If your key selling points are very long, that might be longer as well. But if you have, fairly short, or you don't include headlines in yours, then this will adjust based on the actual data that you have when you're pulling an export. But this is just to give you an idea of how much space you have on the page and how many elements you're putting into it. So we're looking at the preview here, and what I want to just point out is there is, if I zoom in, there's a little customize option at the top. So I can see the top and the bottom of my page. And when I click on that customize button, that is what's going to actually allow me to start changing the content in this template that I'm working on, this single with notes. So when I click on the customize button, it's going to gray out the preview for the time being, and it's going to pop up a little customized window that has items organized into columns that are equivalent to the columns that you're seeing in the preview. So you can turn on or off any one of these elements in order to customize your export for future use. So you'll see a couple of them. Most of them are simply like on-off switches. If you can select an item, select catalog, item number at the top there to get the catalog, the number within the catalog to display. By default, it's off, but you can turn that on. You can turn on first print if that's something that your company provides. And if your company doesn't put that in your data, then there's probably not a lot of point in selecting that option. There are some options, though, where there are sub-options below. So, for example, here I've just highlighted the buy stock main subject. So by default, you're going to see the full description, the full text. So you would see something like, juvenile nonfiction / dinosaurs. If you wanted to only see top level subjects in your output, just fiction or just transportation, then you can have the option to select just the top level option here. But we're here to add notes to this export. So you'll notice that we have a couple of options. In the single, because we have so much space and because people want a little more flexibility, you will see that some items, notes being one of them, but also promotion plans and reviews, can either go into the center section or they can go into the right column, depending on your priorities, how you want to see this data. So we have in our view here already quite a lot of things in the center section. So what I'm going to do is select it into my right column. So I'm going to select notes to display in the right column. So notes, again, is one of these sections that has some sub-options. So there are 3 different kinds of notes. There are the notes that you leave for yourself that are private, no one else can see them. There's the shared notes that you are sharing with other people, and there's notes that people can share with you. So what we've added in this set of features is the ability to choose which of those notes you actually want to include. So if you're doing a catalog that you're going to print out for a retailer and you want to include the notes that you've left for them, you can include the notes that you've shared and hide all of your personal notes. In this case, we're just going to do something which is, I just want to include my own notes. This is a catalog maybe that I want to print out for my own reference. So I've deselected the shared notes and shared with me. And then what I want to do is click on the preview button to see what that's going to do to my single with notes option. So there's our preview, and I'm just going to click on the preview button. So when I get my preview, what that will do is take the preview, the view that we had before, and it will update with the new content that I've selected. So you can get a sense of where your data is going to display, and if you want to maybe go back and you can customize further, or you can save your changes. So in this case, I'm just going to click the Save button, and that's going to save my changes. So when I go back to my page now and I look in my PDF template option, I'm going to see that I now have a single title with my notes. So I have at least one custom option now available. So when I'm looking at a catalog and I want to export to PDF, I'm still seeing the default PDF options available, so they're just below my templates list. And I can still choose any of the defaults, the single, list, or tile, by clicking on the icons in the default list. But I also have the ability now to export to my single title with notes version. If I click through onto a title level, I can export a single title as well in any of the single formats. So I can do the default single, and I can do the single title with notes. The list and tile versions disappear when you're looking at a single title, but any of your single title setups, you're able to access the custom exports. So if I'm going to custom export, I've just selected on my custom with notes, because courtesy of my favorite text generator, the Cupcake Ipsum, I do have some notes content in here, so we'll see what that looks like on the export version. So we did add also a download manager, so you can see at bottom left, the download PDF option will give me a status bar on what's happening with this single one, but if I have multiple, any of the PDFs that I'm calling. If you're calling a lot of PDFs, you can minimize that so that it's not interfering with your view of the data. The PDFs will download automatically once they've finished creating. And let's look at the PDF that we just created. So here's our PDF export, single page, just the single title I exported, and there's my notes in the right column. So there's a fair amount of notes that we've left room for. Every time we think that we've left enough room for notes, people tell us differently. So let us know how that works out for you. But we've tried to leave enough space to give you a really good overview of your notes content in the export version. The single page is limited to one page, so if your content rolls over onto the next page, it will just be cut off. So that's one of the important things about that preview top and bottom limiters, is to give you an idea of where you're at risk of losing some content. You may want to make some decisions about how many pieces of information you're putting in each of your export versions to kind of prioritize what you definitely want to make sure displays. Let's look at the list PDF. So there's a few more options in list. I'm going to go back to my page here, and in my PDF templates, I'm going to create a new template once again. So clicking the Create New Template button. And in this case, I'm going to choose the list option from the base templates. And our default in list is to put 5 titles on a page. So in this case, I'm going to give this a name of 3 per page list, because I want to get more information about each title on this version. So when I click Create, again, it's going to take me to a preview. This is the preview of our default. So you start with the default options always, and then you can make your adjustments in the Customize tool. Right now, here's what the amount of space that you have top and bottom for each item. So we don't need to show the whole page here. It makes it a little bit easier for viewing as well. Don't need to keep scrolling down to see where the bottom of your page marker is, because you're just going to be looking at this within the context of each title. So here you can see if I have a lot of description content, I'm probably never going to see contributor bio unless my descriptions are really short. So let me just have a look at what happens when I customize this. So I click the Customize button to open up the Customize tool. And here you can see that we have items in rows, but we also have some layout options at the top. The number of rows on each page, our default is 5, but you can choose less rows on a page. So in this case, if I want to go to 3, I will choose my 3 option and then click the preview to see what that does to my output. So when I click preview, it's actually going to show me that that bottom limiter adjusts considerably. So on average, if my description content isn't going to be particularly long, I'm probably going to get most of my contributor bio, or some of my contributor bio, at least in this view. So I can save this 3 per page list, and away I go. It's done, super fast. I can also, though, choose to customize further if I want to make some other changes. And I did want to show you something else in the list version that's kind of important. So I'm going to actually click Customize again and go back into the custom print layout. So in the custom print layout, there is another option here, which is in the right column, you'll notice that nothing is selected for notes, key selling points, suggested orders, promotion plans. None of those items are selected. So what happens when you do select an item for that column? So I'm going to select key selling points just to show you an option here. When I click on the preview, you can see that everything is moved over to make room for key selling points in the right column. So my description and contributor bio is still the same height, but I'm going to get less content in each of those because I've reduced the amount of space that section has in order to put more content, different content points over into the right sidebar. So let's have a look at the difference. So if I go back and print out now my custom version compared to my list, so the default list version is on the left. So you can see where I've got 5 on a page. You can see where I've got the description content in there, and I'm not getting down as far as any contributor bios in that version. The version on the right is the 3 per page, so I've got some larger cover images. I also have my key selling points where those are available. You'll notice in the JD Robb item that even though there's the last item in the custom list, there's no key selling points available, but I've still earmarked space for that, so it's not going to automatically flow in just because there's no data for that particular point. It's always going to pull the version that you've set, whether data exists or not. So same thing if you set notes to display in that right column and you have items that you haven't added notes on, it's still going to have that blank space there, which is a held space for notes if and when you should enter them in future. So that's an important distinction to note too, is that it's something that is it's a hard coding when you're setting your setup, but you can always set multiple versions. You can set one with key selling points and one without in 3 versions. So let's move on to the tile version. So tile has another set of options for rows and columns. So in the PDF, my page, PDF templates, create. I'm going to create a template. Our default for tile is 3 rows across and 4 down, so 12 on a page. Let's say we want to work through an example where we're adding some more, we want to add some more titles onto that page. So let's do 4 across. We want to make a 4 across and 4 down, so we're getting 16 titles on a page. So same process as before, give it a name. I'm going to call it a 4x4 tile because that'll tell me when I'm looking at my PDF exports and my template list there exactly what I'm going to get. I'm going to get 4x4. And I'm going to choose the tile as my base template and create. So in the tile preview that launches, you actually see a container. So it's not really a top and bottom, but it's a container size for each title. You can kind of see a little bit of the layout there for the rest of the pages. You can see it's going to be 3 across and several down. So when I want to customize this, it's exactly the same process again. You're going to customize, hit the Customize button at the top to open your Customizer window. And you'll see at the top here that we have layout options for number of columns and for number of rows. So it's actually super flexible. So you can have as few as 2 columns across and as many as 5, as few as 3 rows down and as many as 6. So that gives you the flexibility to have as few as 6 tiles on a page and up to 30. It's super flexible. I would suggest if you're doing 30, that's not going to give you a whole lot of space to work with in terms of bibliographic data. But this was something that we put together to support things like gift shows. When you're going out to if you're going out to a gift show and you just want to have a list of barcodes with biblio data without the cover images, barcode is available on all of the layouts now. You can add cover and barcode or cover or barcode for any of these versions. So that's something that you can do like at 5 across and 6 down, and it will absolutely work. You may have to limit your bibliographic data. Maybe you're not including, your dimensions or your page counts, that type of thing. But it gives you some flexibility to do that kind of work. So for this one, I just want to increase by 1 row. So I'm just going to move that up to a 4. I just click on it to select it. and then click on the preview to see what that does to our layout. So the preview shows you that that cover image is going to get a fair bit smaller, and it's going to move up to the top with all of the biblio data below it. So there's not enough room there to put biblio data to the right of the cover image, so it's going to move underneath. It'll tell you that you might be at risk, especially if your book titles are long, of losing some content at the bottom. But, you know, that's something if you want to customize further and maybe remove page count or something like that, then you can make those changes. I'm just going to save this change and then have a look at the difference between, again, the default tile and the custom that we've just set up. So it's the same catalog, the February fiction, mystery, and thrillers. So the default tile version, 3 across and 4 down, versus the custom tile at 4 across and 4 down. So your cover images are getting smaller. We actually have a small tweak in the works right now to kind of move some of that biblio data up into the empty space to make the most use of it. But that should be out in the next week. Just a minor tweak there. But you can get a sense here of like how the changes that you affect will affect the output that you're getting in the export. So managing your templates. So if you've got a couple, we have several now. So if I'm on the My Page option and I open my PDF templates, we've built a 3 per page with key selling points. We've put in a single title with notes. We've done a 4x4 title version. And so I can create more from here, but I'm actually going to click on the other button, which is Manage Templates, to show you what you can do there. So in the Manage Templates window, you can see here that you can still do all of the same thing. You can create a new template, but you can see more details about when the templates were created, and there's more actions that you can do on them. So of course you can view and edit any of your templates. So if, for example, you decide you wanted to put another row into the tile to make it a 4x5, you can edit that. You can edit the name of the template in there in the edit tools, and you can also edit any of the content, make changes to any of the content. We've got a question.
So I'm just going to read it out.
Yes.
It looks as though the list and tile options work with a specified space or container. So if information is too lengthy, it will get cut off. Is that correct? There is no flexibility to adjust the space or container outside of the program options, that is to say the number of rows and columns. So the placement of ISBN, price, carton quantity, etc., to the right of the cover image is not always beautiful. Is there an option to drop that below the cover for lists and tile options? And is there any way to change the font?
So no, the fonts are standard at this point. So making changes to that is actually not simple. So it has a lot of implications for the coding. The elements for the boxes for each space, there's a top limit set. So, and that's to try and make sure that we get as much information, at least some of the information for all things. If your description, for example, is shorter than the max, then everything else will move up. The order of items, one of the things that retailers have consistently asked us for is actually consistency in where the order that things display in. So ISBN always in the same order, ISBN title, that kind of thing, so that they're not confused when they know exactly where to look for things. I'm not sure if this is exactly the question that is being asked, but no, so no, you can't change, like put ISBN ahead of something else or you can't move the order of items. We've tried to prioritize the order of items based on like looking at lots of different catalogs across the board to see kind of how things are ordered in terms of priority. In terms of setup, where images display versus biblio data, that's all it's all coded. So based on the available amount of space in each of the layouts. If there's something that really is not working for you, then contact us at the catalyst@booknetcanada.ca address, and I'll put that up at the end with your concerns. And there may be things that we can tweak to make it, to improve the way that things look, based on on your feedback. We also are working with the user group who have been very, very involved in all of the preview work on this and preparation work, sorting all these things out. And we will have a follow-up with them again in, I think the next meeting is in February. So we'll be doing some major review then based on any feedback that they're bringing back and any feedback that we have directly from you guys. So coming back to our template managing options. So we've just talked about the edit options here. So edit goes back into the preview and customize options, so you can make any changes there. The owned by column, I'm just going to point this out because this has implications for sharing your template. So if you are an account manager or a catalog editor, you have that access. You also have the ability to share your template. So you can build a template and share it to everyone inside your account. This is a really useful tool for just minimizing workload. You can set up a couple of standard custom templates for your account that anyone in your account can access. So in order to share a template, you simply click on the share checkbox in this view. So when you've shared a template, only you can edit that template, but everyone else has access to export catalogs in your custom format, and they can actually view it here in their templates list. They can view the preview. They just can't do the editing part of it. Make a copy is a useful little tool. You can make a copy if someone has access to your single title with notes, but they want to make some other change to it. They can actually make a copy of any of their own or someone else's and build with that as a base. So it'll create clicking the button creates like another row, so single title with my notes copy. You can click edit then on that, change the name of it, change the content in it, but you're working from that original custom template. So without having to re-add notes and all of those things. Start with that and then make further changes. If you are done with templates or you didn't really mean to make that copy, you can simply just click on the red X to delete. It will give you a prompt to make sure that yes, you want to delete this, and then you can delete. So headers and footers, let's talk about these guys. So in that Manage Templates page, you may see across the top, there's a couple of other tabs. So the Customize Header Footer, this is again a function that is only available to the account managers and the catalog editors. So if you're not seeing the additional options here at the top, the additional tabs and templates, it just means that you don't have the proper necessary permissions to set these. So Customize Header Footer is, because it's an account level setting, it is limited to the catalog editors and account managers. So when I click over on that tab, I'm going to see there's a header preview, a footer preview, and a couple of options for each of the sections. So our default for header, you get your catalog name in the left, you get your company logo in the right. It's actually, if you are a publisher and you have created seasonal catalogs that are tied to particular imprints, when someone pulls that catalog, they'll get the imprint logo if it's specified and there's a logo available. Otherwise, the fallback is your company logo. That's useful for some of our bigger publishers or multi-line publishers. The footer defaults are your company name in the center section and the page number in the right. But you can make any changes to these. It's a fairly limited set of changes, but it does give you some flexibility in where things display. So for example, if you want to switch the page number and put to the top and put your logo in the bottom, you can simply click on the page number at header right, and you'll see that the preview will update automatically. And then select your imprint company logo in the footer right option in order to change those around. So that does give you a little bit of flexibility about where content displays. So, and probably, I expect this will be the favorite piece, is the custom text in footer center. So when I click on the custom text option, it gives me the option to to put up to 60 characters of content in that section. You'll see where it says custom text here in the center now. So you can put in your website domain, you can put in a customer service address, an order number, or an order email. You can really put anything you like in there. So for example, I'm working the Lone Stars account for this, obviously. So you can visit us at lonestars.ca. Whatever characters you want to put in there. So you can put that in, click save, you get the saved confirmation, and that will update your header or your headers and footers. So headers and footers will just, to clarify, this will be applied. The changes that you set here, or the custom details that you set here, are applied to all catalogs that are created by users in your account. So your custom catalogs, your seasonal catalogs, and it doesn't matter who's calling them. So if, for example, you are working with a sales agent or a sales agency, if they're calling your catalogs that you've created, they're going to get your custom header and footer content. If they're on CataList and creating their own catalogs that they're using to sell to accounts, they also have the ability to create their own headers and footers and that will be applied to their catalogs. For the ampersands or LPGs of the world, they can customize they can build their custom catalogs, they can put their own custom header and footer with their contact information for ordering. But so they'll have that in the system, but when they pull your catalogs, they still get your information. The header and footer is always applied for the account that creates the catalog, regardless of who is pulling the catalog. The last piece that I wanted to cover off is adding front matter and end pages. So as I said, this isn't strictly a PDF function, but it's very visible in the PDF, and it's kind of something that people originally asked for, publishers really asked for as part of the PDF export. And so the request was really around being able to add introductory pages, about a special or about, just introduction to this season and why some of these books are important. And in terms of end pages, there were things like acknowledgments for funding. There were, territorial rights, distribution, sales contacts, that kind of information that people wanted to be able to tag on to the end of their catalogs. Completely logical. So we've added the ability at the catalog level to be able to specify a particular introductory matter and then end pages. But a lot of the end page content was kind of standard information. We just want to be able to just click with one click to add, our standard list of reps and territories. So we added here in the template manager page the ability to just upload a standard set of end pages. So these aren't going to be automatically added to every single catalog, but when you're building your catalogs or editing catalogs, it's kind of a one-click thing to be able to just say, yes, and include my standard pages, include my rep contacts on the end of this catalog. So when I click over to Standard End Page tab, again, it's another admin function, so catalog editors can access this and account managers. And it's very straightforward. I mean, it's add standard end pages, browse for a file, select a PDF file, and then save. So when you are doing this, the one thing about standard end pages that's actually really useful is that we kind of store one version for your company. So if this season you create your next season's catalogs, you've appended this standard end page to all of those catalogs, and then next year you have a change. You have a new rep that joins. You have a change in distribution. When you update your end page, your standard end pages, as soon as you do that, anyone pulling your catalogs that has the standard end pages include checked off will automatically get the most recent version of your end pages. So they'll get the most recent contact list, the most recent distribution information, even though they're pulling an older catalog, catalog from last season. So that's kind of a really useful thing to do when you're making it easier for people in your account to just add those pages easily on their catalogs. And secondly, you're able to keep them up to date in an easier manner. So I've chosen a PDF file. I've saved it, and now I want to know, what does that do to my catalog? How can I add that to my catalog? So it's the same process whether you're creating a new catalog or editing an existing one. I'm going to walk through it as an edit, but whether you're editing or creating custom, seasonal catalogs, in any of these locations, you're able to add front and end pages. Incidentally, as part of this, we've also added the ability to put a custom cover on your custom catalog. So you can design a cover for your custom catalogs and attach it. So I'm in the Edit Catalog Info. I'm going to work in the same catalog that I've been working in today. And if you scroll down, this is all of our required information. We need our properties, we need our season, we need our ISBNs. But if you scroll down, there is a new section for all of the optional information. So you don't have to do any of these things. It's all optional, but they're there and available to you. So cover image has already been added for this catalog, so I don't need to do anything there. It's the same process as it's always been. I can remove a catalog cover image if I want to do that. If I want to add front matter and pages, I'm just simply going to click the Add button. So if I click Add on front matter, it's going to pop up a little, it's going to open this little section, and it's just going to be select a PDF file to insert at the beginning of the catalog. So if I browse for my file, and I'm going to choose my front matter option, one little side note that I'm going to put in here is it can be more than one page. Your end pages and your front matter can be more than one page as long as they're all contained in a single PDF file. I would just say that if you're going to do more than one page, that it be worthwhile for people who are exporting your catalog, that it all be useful information. So maybe you want to have an introduction plus something about a special offer that you've got for the year in front matter that's applicable to that catalog. Just because when they pull it, they're always going to get that front matter option. Click Open, and it will tag that in that section. So you'll see below, you can exit out if you want to just get rid of it, or you can click the Remove to remove it when if you've already saved one. The end pages, if I click on the Add End Pages, there's a few more options here because we just added some standard ones. So there's two options. I can use company standard end pages, or I can select a custom one. I can kind of override that. I can have no end pages at all if I don't click Add. The default is nothing. I can choose my standard, or I can choose a custom one that I specifically want to put on this. So for example, maybe if I'm doing like a catalog that includes rights information, I want a custom end page that's about, for rights information, contact so-and-so. So you can do that kind of thing as well. In this case, let's just use the standard end pages. We just uploaded them. It's so easy. We just one click, yes, and now I have end pages. I'm going to click Save, and then I'm going to go and view my catalog. So when I'm viewing my catalog, if I've loaded front or end matter pages, you'll see, and it may not be immediately obvious, but in the navigation bar, we have a new option in the navigation for catalog, which is you can kind of see the little yellow front and end. So if I click on that, I can actually see in the online view as well, view that front matter, view the end matter directly here. So as well as when I'm exporting it. So there is a view to that information inside the online views as well as on the export. So when I'm exporting, front and end matter are put together in this order. So my Lone Stars, my cover image first, my front matter, then all of my catalog content, and then my end pages. So here we've got our cover image, we've added some information about Lone Stars. We have whatever version, custom, templates, standard defaults, whether it's single title, whether it's list or tile. Our catalog content is all chunked in that center section there, and then our end pages are tagged onto the end. You can, if you've got beautifully designed cover and intro page and an end page, you can add all that in on your seasonal catalogs or put them into your custom catalogs to kind of up the game on that exported version.